So welcome everybody. Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Tonight we are learning for the schus of Emmanuel ben Luiza, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless him for parnasa, hatzlacha, and health for his mishpacha, as well as for Fuah Shlema B'Saras Toivos for Cassandra Bas Pulo. And as usual, for Le'ilui Nishmas Avraham ben Chaim Yehuda and Yecheskel ben Abraham, and Le'ilui Nishmas Zechariah Shimon ben Rav Yitzchak, which is Rav Zechariah Wallerstein. And today we're going to use a little bit of the information I've been speaking about Hakar Satov and gratitude, and it's just so happens to be that the Rav Zechariah Wallerstein Sefer is actually right over here, near as I was cleaning my desk, we have a whole pile of farm on each side, and I want to, so tonight we're going to be using a little bit of information from Rav Zechariah Wallerstein and Reb Shimon Finkelman's Sefer, so of course that should be Le'iloi Nishmasai. Oh, we have over something else also. Also for a Zivagagan for Chana Bas Rus. Okay, so now let's go. Oh, it's a Ben Ish Chai's Yurtzeit tonight. Wow. Okay, that's unbelievable. Special schus tonight. We should have utilized some information for the Ben Ish Chai. But in any case, maybe something will come. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, so now happens to be, when I'm thinking about the Ben Ish Chai, there's a story that comes to mind, but I don't know, we'll see if we have time to say it later. I really wanted to save it for a different part. Okay, moving forward to the topic at hand. So this topic, I know it's like we're in Elul, we're getting close to Rosh Hashanah. This topic obviously is appropriate all year around, but there is, I think, huge schusim coming into Elul, coming into Rosh Hashanah to work on, Hakar Satov, to work on the lack of Hakar Satov, which is a Kafei Tov, which is ingratitude. I think that's a huge maila to come into, a huge benefit to come into coming Rosh Hashanah, working on yourself and improving in this area, especially between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between you and God. So the way that I want to speak about it tonight, God willing, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us that it should come out nice and easy. This is a lot of, think of this class more of a self-help style class. Like there's going to bring problems and we're going to try to bring solutions to that. Obviously, we're going to bring a lot of Torah sources for everything that we speak about, but the idea is to try to get to a very practical level. So last class that we spoke about ungratefulness, we mentioned three ideas, sources or origins of ungratefulness. Now we're going to repeat that very, very briefly, and then we want to go through each and every single one and sort of, figure out how to get out of that ungratefulness. So of the three things that we mentioned, just to do a quick recap, was why is it that some people are ungrateful? They don't have the ability to say thank you or to show gratitude, show hakat tov, show this appreciation of what was given to them. So, of the three reasons that we gave, number one is that they simply didn't realize the good. They don't realize the favor. The example that we gave was a simple example. I think that's very relevant, especially speaking to women, is that when someone hosts someone for Shabbos, there's a lot of preparation that takes place. So you would think that someone would go and be appreciative. But if somebody never hosted, they don't really fully understand or realize the extent of effort that went into it, so they don't appreciate to a certain extent the good. Again, they'll say thank you, but not everybody realizes the extent of it. So one origin, let's call it, of not being grateful is simply you don't realize that you need to be grateful. Area number two is that, this is a little bit more, severe, is where you don't want to owe someone something. You don't want to, if someone gave me something, now I owe this person, that means I have to say thank you. I don't really want to say thank you. I don't really want to owe someone anything, and therefore I'm not even gonna acknowledge that there was something good that was given to me. So it's sort of like this mental block that gets placed that we don't begin to even see the good. And the third area, which we mentioned, was entitlement. People feel that they deserve something. And if they deserve something, you owe this to me. So I have to say thank you. This is your job. This is what you have to do. So we'll try to, B'ezrat Hashem, go through each of these three categories and see how we can overcome it. And by the way, I was thinking about this. And you might think, maybe I'm in one section, out all three. If you really think about it, And again, to each their own. I'm not going to, like, you do you. But if you really think about it, I think we could all come to the conclusion that we fall a little bit, at least, into each of these three categories. Maybe one bucket more than the other, but it's, like, when you think, okay, I don't want to owe someone something, like, I'm not that personality. But if you really think about it and you really go and delve into, you do a little bit of a cheshbon nefesh, you do a little bit of isbadus, you do a little bit of, inspection, then you'll have a little bit more of an understanding. I'm sorry, guys, with the internet issues. I don't know. I see that you guys are sending the messages. Let me see if I could switch to a different internet. Hold on one second. No, I'm actually on my fastest one. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna keep on going. If it's still stopping, just like let me know. I'll pause the video and then we'll, it might need like sometimes, I don't know. I want to say the word buffer, but I'm a pretty fast internet, so I don't know. But if it keeps on happening, please do put it up on the screen. Okay, so now let's start off with the three things. So we're going to start off with what I think is the most common one. And the most common one is the first one, where it's you don't realize the good that was given to you. You don't understand that you have to be appreciative. And again, it could be for many different reasons. You don't know the work that was gone into it. You don't realize that it was a favor. We're not going to go into all the details, but the bottom line is you don't realize that you have to say thank you. So there is a pasuk in Bamidbar, chapter 21, verse 5. And it speaks about the Jewish people that they went and they complained. And they go over to Moshe Rabbeinu and it says, Lama lisanu mitzrayim, why did you take us out of Egypt, lamas bamidbar, to die in the desert? Ki ein lechem, there's no bread. Ve'ein mayim, there's no water. V'nafsheinu katza balechem hakalkal. It said all we have is this rotten bread. And you think about what is the rotten bread that they're talking about. And Rashi goes and says the rotten bread. You know what they call the rotten bread? That was the man. The man. The reason why they called it, Rashi goes and explains why they called it rotten bread, is the man was completely absorbed into their limbs. It was not excreted. There was no bowel movements. So they called it rotten because, there's going to have to be some sort of, damage. Is there any? You can't digest something without any excretion. And that's part of the human process. So the punishment, because the Jewish people complained about the man, is the famous punishment. We know that the serpents, the snakes, they came and they attacked the Jewish people and killed many of them. Now the Medrash goes on and explains that why is it specifically that the snakes attack the Jewish people? And the reason is very interesting. When you look at how HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything measure for measure, that the snake spoke ill, obviously bad, about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Eitz Hadas, and how you could go and basically the snake went and convinced Adam and Chava to eat from the forbidden fruit. And because it convinced them, the snake's punishment was that it was denied the gift of taste. Everything now that the snake would eat would taste like dust. The man, on the other hand, had an unbelievably amazing quality. That whatever the person was thinking about, that is what it tasted like. Meaning that you could think about any food or any taste that you want, and that is the taste that it happened. It's like, what was it? Like something that comes out of like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like Willy Wonka type of thing, where it comes up and you can just think about something, and then, not that they can create anything like this, but like that fantasy type of you can't even begin to comprehend it. It's like science fiction. How do you just think about something and that's what it tastes like? So what happened was they had something that had everything, but they took it for granted. So now they got punished by something that has nothing. Everything, to the exact opposite. Now, what happened was that the snake started going and attacking the Jewish people. So what Moshe Rabbeinu did is that he made a copper snake, and he put it up on the stick, and everybody who looked up on the snake was able to go and be healed. Now, obviously, this copper snake had no healing power. So what happened over here, that they looked up and they saw from this copper snake and they were healed? Rather, what happened was they looked up and they started doing tshuva. They started doing repentance. Why? Because they realized their source of their sin. They realized their lack of gratitude that they have. They saw the snake, which everything is tasteless. And they had everything, all the tastes. They realized the depths of their gratitude. They realized how long they were, and then they did tshuva, and then they were able to be saved. So what happened is that this copper snake made them realize, not only the copper snakes, the snakes themselves, it was sort of a hint, measure for measure, making them realize of what they had compared to, the snake. Now you take it a step further. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch goes and says that Hashem did not actually send snakes to attack the people. They were in the desert, the Midbar. This was a natural habitat for snakes. This is where snakes lived well. This is their feeding ground. So what happened was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put this protective, put the protection around them. And when the time came for the punishment, all HaKadosh Baruch Hu did was remove that protection. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed that protective shield, then the snakes that were there all along, they just came along out of all out of their crevices and behaved in their natural way, in their own habitat. So we see over here a very important lesson, that sometimes you have someone that benefits us continuously. And we get this benefit. And you can fill in who this person is, whether it's your parent, spouse, a friend, it doesn't matter. Many people benefit us continuously. And we take this for granted. As human nature does, we take it for granted. And it is only when something causes this temporary suspension of that giving that we're getting, and we stop receiving that, then all of a sudden we realize how much we needed that, and how much we appreciate that, and how grateful we should be. Like the famous example that you could give is where you have a husband who's sitting over there and doesn't appreciate his wife's cooking, and then his wife has to leave for a family event and flies out for a week or so. And now this husband is there to fend for himself, even though now the Jewish women are unbelievable. And what they do is that they'll prepare all the meals and stick it in the freezer and says, you just take this and put it in the microwave. But let's say this wife didn't do it. This husband would be like, well, I have to cook. What do I gotta, wear pans, they could go crazy. I don't know what's going on. And then you start realizing, wow, look how grateful I have. My wife goes and does all this cooking. You know how much work goes into cooking? Anybody who has cooked anything, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. We have to go and start appreciating, but as men, we don't really appreciate it until we start actually cooking. And then there's the prep, and there's a shopping, then there's a prep, then there's the cooking, then there's the cleaning, then there's setting up, and then there's the dishing out, then there's the cleaning up afterwards. It's a full-time job. So we don't, like a husband would not always realize all that his wife does until the wife doesn't do it anymore, and then be like, wait a minute, I really have something over here, to be grateful. Over here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected the Yidden. And now all of a sudden the protection went away, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, we need this protection. We didn't even begin to realize, we had this protection. How many times in our own life do, we only realize what we had until it's gone? The famous example is people, how many people that are no longer in our life, whether not living or whether not, integrally connected to us the way that it used to be. How much it would be like, oh wow, I took that person for granted. Look at how much I wish I could have another moment with that person. I wish I could do it, and it's never by the way, it's never usually, I wish that person could give me a little bit more, generally, right? In a healthy situation, it's never that way. But when we think about it, we don't realize generally what we have until it's taken away. It could be our health. You don't realize, if someone's not suffering from allergies or something like that, you're not always blowing your nose, you're coughing, you have different, sinuses, you have headaches, you have post-nasal drips, you have all these things. You don't begin to realize it, and then you don't begin to realize the benefit of not having the sickness. And then once you have the sickness, you'll be like, wow, how do I take breathing for granted? People that went through COVID, unfortunately, and at this point in time, there's cycles, and Baruch Hashem, it's gotten lighter for different cycles. But, in the original COVID, when people had a hard time breathing, when you're dealing with that difficulty, you're like, wow, I never appreciated taking a breath. I never appreciated the fact of breathing. I never, you have a headache, you could begin to appreciate when the headache goes away, be like, wow, I feel great. Wait, I don't have any back pain? What does that even mean? People that suffer from chronic pain, they are always with that. And imagine they're stopped for a short period of time that they don't have that pain. It's like, wait, this is how people live? This is how people, go through life? This is unbelievable. Yet you have people that are completely healthy and they don't appreciate that. They don't appreciate that. Somebody who has been through just like minor health issues can begin to appreciate what health really is. So we don't appreciate something until it's taken away, and then we realize what we actually had. And it could also be situational. It doesn't have to be people, it could be health, it could be situational. Even to the fact that, you have a younger person, and again, what would define younger, depending on who we're talking to, but you have a younger people, there's less responsibilities, there's less things, there's more, we don't realize, how many times when you get older, you'll be like, wow, when I was younger, I didn't have this bill, I didn't have to do that, I didn't have this responsibility, I had like so much, like why didn't I appreciate that more? Well, guess what? You're younger right now than you will be in the future, so appreciate what you have right now. Stop for a second and don't wait until you're gonna lose something, and then you could look back and be like, wow, I can't believe, I didn't appreciate that. Like that was so amazing. We have to, many times in our life, we focus too much on the future and we never live in the present. And we're always about the next step and the next thing that we're going to conquer and the next thing that we're going to do. And we're like, okay, we're going to get the kids and then get the kids in school. And then we're going to and then we're going to go on vacation. You're always on the next step and you're never in the moment. And if you're never in the moment, you can't begin to appreciate it. And even when we're in the moment, generally we're on our phones taking pictures of the moment so we'll remember it later. But we're still never in the moment. You never, I'm not saying don't take pictures. I think pictures are amazing and it's a good memory to have. But stop for a little bit in your life. Doesn't matter where you are. Just once a day, just stop. You're driving, just stop and be like, let me appreciate life for just a little bit. For a little bit. So the step one is that you have to realize the blessings that you have. We have so many blessings in our life. And we tend to forget these blessings, and then we tend to be ungrateful or not, grateful for the things that we should be. Because we don't realize what we have. We don't realize until it's taken away. We don't realize what we have until the HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes something away, and then all of a sudden we wake up. The trick is to wake up before it's taken away and appreciate it. The Gemara in Bava Basra, page 16b, goes and says that when someone's in pain or suffering, that person is not held accountable, responsible, if they say something negative. For example, in the beginning of Parshas Chukas, when the Jewish people lost the source of water, they were thirsty, they complained. And Hashem did not hold them accountable. Because why? He understood that they were experiencing the thirst. So they did not hold them accountable. Ask Rav Moshe Reisman, then why is it that the first pasuk that we mentioned over here at the beginning of this year, in Bamidbar, chapter 21, verse 5, why is it that when the Jewish people complained, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did hold them accountable? They were complaining they were also complaining. If you're complaining, that means you have a right to complain because something's bothering you, so you have a right to complain. So why are we accountable in one area and not another area? And their answer is that the Jewish people did not complain only in the issue that they were dealing with. They started complaining about other things as well. They started speaking derogatory about the man. It wasn't just about that there's no food, we're in the desert, there's nothing to drink. They didn't stop over there. If they would have stopped over there, that would have been one thing. But they started complaining for the positive things. They started complaining about the man. Amazing, amazing gift, the man. So, when someone goes and complains about something that they're going through some difficulty, that's understandable. But once you start complaining about something that's a benefit for you, how is that that you took a step too far? And this is why complaining and ungratefulness is a very, very slippery slope. Because once you start complaining or once you start having ungratefulness, it doesn't just stop on the negative side. It continues to all the positive side. And you can see this in people. When someone's a positive person, they can see the positive in the negative. When someone's a negative person, they see the negative in the positive. Again, let me repeat that just so if it didn't confuse you. If someone's a positive person, there could be a bad situation and they can see the good in that. A negative person can have a good situation and see the bad in that. They could win the lottery and the first thing they think about, well, how much taxes I'm going to have to give. Okay, that's what you're worried about? You got some good news and now already you got to think about something bad? You got to already go focus on the bad? So once you start going in the negative, it's a very, very slippery slope because you could start off in the correct, but then you're going to start saying, oh, well, now everybody wants me to give them money. And now everybody wants me to open up a business. And you could keep on going on a slippery slope until the point you're like, why do I have all this? You can start complaining on all the blessings that you have. Let's take this one step further. The Pasuk in Bamidbar, chapter 11, verse 1. Another part in the Torah Kedusha that speaks about where the Yidden complained. And it says, "Vayihi ha'am kimisayninim." The Jewish people, they were like complainers. And it says kimisayninim. They were like complainers. Explains Rabbi Yisachar Fran. He brings down the Ramban. The Ramban says, what does it mean? Why is the Torah saying they were like complainers? Like, they were complainers. What was a kimisayninim? They were like the complainers. So the Ramban goes and explains that something we spoke about before, a few minutes ago. When people speak out of hurt and pain, to a certain degree, if they're whining, they have a legitimacy to their whining. When people are in pain, it's natural for them to complain. Someone's in the hospital, he's in pain, so they say things that maybe sometimes he wouldn't say, like, why is God doing this to me? I don't deserve this. Things that just come up that is more of the natural, assuming people are not working on themselves and not at the highest level of it's a natural response. So when people get upset and they are complaining, they're not really complainers. They're like complaining. Kimisayninim. They're like their complainers. So the Ramban is saying over here that the people were like complainers. They were in a bad situation. They were in a difficult situation. So they complained. But they weren't complainers. They were like complainers. They were complaining about the situation, meaning that was like a situational thing. So the Ramban goes and says, so if so, why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why was God upset with them? Like they were complaining because of the situation. Why were they upset with them? So the Ramban goes and says that, the Jewish people should have followed God with the attitude based on all the goodness, all the chesed, all the kindness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided them. When things are going so well, when a person has so much good fortune, it's inappropriate to complain. Of course, there's going to be challenges in life. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be bumps in the road. But when we look at our lives, most of us are pretty fortunate if you look at the overall picture of things. Most of us have overall decent health, overall decent families, overall a roof over your shoulder. You have like a lot of good in your life. You have the ability to taste, you have the ability to eat, you have the ability to smell, you have the ability to look, you have the ability to walk, you have the ability to feel. There's so many blessings in our lives. And yes, it may not be 100%. We may be going through some, severe allergies. We may be going through some back pains or neck pains or jaw pain. We may be going through some difficulties and some bumps. And that's true, like we can't complain. But the Ramban is saying that's not the right thing to do. We have to look at the big picture. There is so much blessing and bracha that's in our life. And even though we have these little bumps, when you look at the overall picture, when you look at the bird's eye view, you look at the unbelievable blessings that we have. So the step 3 from the first area that we're speaking about, that even if you don't complain on the good that you have, when you look at the bad that you're dealing with, and then you see how much good you have, you start weighing that out, how can you complain? Meaning we look at the big picture, how can we be ungrateful for something when we have so much to be grateful for? So we took this into 3 steps. Let's just do a quick recap before I move on to the next area. We took the first area into 3 steps. Again, the first area was, why are people ungrateful? They just don't realize it. So step 1 is to open your eyes and realize the blessings that you have. Realize that imagine like the people in the desert, they had, the protective shield of what, and they only realized that they had something good when HaKadosh Baruch Hu took it away. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away the protection, and all of a sudden the snakes came, then they realized they were in trouble. So if we stop for a second and we look back and be like, look at the blessings that we have in our life. Don't wait for God to take it away. We don't want God to take it away. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want you to keep on bringing me more and more blessings. Keep them coming. And I'm going to go and appreciate every single blessing, because when we look at our life, the fact that you have air conditioning, heating, you have lighting, you have running water, there's so much to be grateful for. Don't wait until you have a leak and then you'd be like, wow, I should be so grateful that I don't have a leak. Like some people, the gas has to be shut off because there's some sort of, who knows what issues can come up. Stop for a second. This is why I feel it's so important that, on a daily basis, we go and tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you. And we have to sometimes think out of the box. Don't, it's easy to say always the same things to be thankful for. But sometimes it's good to think out of the box. Like, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I have into my apartment, into my home, whatever you are living, that I have a water line, and that I have electricity, and I have a gas line. Like, these are things and not only that, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I don't have a leak in one of them. And not only that, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that, that they all work more or less okay. Like, there's so many things that can be taken away, and then we realize what great we had. When you have a blackout, so where I live in New Jersey, every once in a while there is, a blackout, and there's a storm. Like a lot of trees in the area. So once there is a blackout, you start beginning to appreciate it. Where I live, there's, if there's a blackout, there's no running water. There's no obviously there's no lights, there's no electricity, there's no. You start realizing, wait a minute, we needed electricity really badly. You can't survive. When there's a blackout for a minute, you start wait, what? I'm not even talking about the Wi-Fi. That's a younger person issue. Literally surviving is a situation. But you stop for a second and be wait a minute, I have electricity. How big of a bracha is that? Do we understand the craziness of what's going on right now? There are people, when I'm looking at it, I know throughout America, possibly Israel. I don't know I don't want to call out your name if you're still in Israel, but possibly on more than one continent, not only listening to us share live, but you're seeing it, you're interacting, you can so easily, quickly, just type in a question. Do we realize how connected we are? This is based off electricity. This is based off the internet. Do we realize the blessing that we have? This didn't exist 15 years ago. This was not shaykh. This was not possible. Do we stop for a second and realize we could be in the comfort of our own home and be listening to our classes if we're sitting in the class, itself? We don't begin to realize it. Again, this is not a good complaint, but to the point that even if it's buffering a little bit, it's not clear. Something, we should email Zoom. There's an issue over here. What's going on over here? It should be more smoother. We don't even begin to Again, I didn't say this. As I'm saying this, by the way, it's telling me my connection is unstable. So yeah, because Baruch Hu is, there's definitely a sense of humor, right? I apologize. I know it's freezing. I don't know what to do. It's, I can't unfreeze it. There's no button that I could press. I could try to switch to a different network, but I don't know that that's going to help. But I will switch it to a different network. Hopefully that will work. If it's worse, please let me know because I'll switch it back. But anyways, the unbelievably it's so funny because literally what I'm speaking about is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. You know what? Let's throw a bolt in there. But now we can begin to appreciate it more. When it's smooth, you can begin to appreciate more. Think about it when someone's going and listening to this on Torah Anytime afterwards, and it's smooth. There's no breaks. There's nothing in there. That's an unbelievable bracha. When I go and I listen to shiurim, let's say, of Rabbanim that were from, I don't know, there's recordings from them. Yeah, Reb Shimshon Pincus, you go Reb Noach Weinberg, Rabbanim that are no longer around over here. The audio is not always easy to listen to, and you have to really concentrate. And now we have audio that's so crisp. You have shout out to Sennheiser. I don't know, this is our our audio devices. Where things can come so crystal clear, and only in the matter of time, it's only going to get clearer. Do we begin to appreciate all these things? We don't even realize that we have to have a car. We don't even realize that we have to be grateful for it. Because we think we don't begin to think. So the step over here that we have to focus is take a step back in life and realize that we have blessings in our life. And then we went to step 2, that once you start not realizing these blessings, you could go to complaints and ungratefulness. And that's a slippery slope, because once you start complaining, once you start being ungrateful, it could start with a negative, but then it could go to the positive. And then we took it to step 3, the final step, which was that even if you don't complain on the good and you only complain on the bad, how can you overlook the good? There's so much good that God has given us. So the main theme, if we were in this area of not seeing the good in our life, is to realize to realize how much blessings we have. And once you realize the blessings that you have, then you can begin to be grateful. Like, we could be ungrateful people, not because we're ungrateful people, just because we don't even begin to realize how much we have to be grateful for. So we started off, like the series where like so many people are ungrateful and like, okay, but like I'm really not so ungrateful. But now when you take it in the bigger picture, I don't know. Maybe we're a little bit ungrateful. Maybe and by ungrateful, maybe we have to be more grateful to many things. And of course, the source of gratitude that we have to have is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to God. How many things can we now open our eyes and just simply say thank you for? And I can guarantee you, if you stop for a second and you think about it, like if a kid is in a school, like, that is an amazing thing. Not every kid is in a school. That's something to be grateful for and thankful for. Like, you're in college. You have a job. It might not be paying you what you want. You might be miserable, but you're making income. You're making some money. Like, there's so many things that if we just take a step back, that we realize maybe how ungrateful or not grateful enough that we have been. And there are unfortunately people that they don't see their blessing. One of these type of people was Bilam Rasha. Bilam was, the famous story with Bilam and his donkey, that Bilam, he wanted to go and curse the Jewish people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God told him, no, do not curse the Jewish people. But he went back and forth, and decided he's going to go curse, the Jewish people. So he was on his way to meet with Balak, the king of Moab, and he was riding on his donkey, and the road was blocked. Now, Bilam didn't see this, but the donkey saw it. There was an angel blocking it. So the donkey tried to go to one side, and the angel blocked that area. And so the donkey had to go to the other side, and the angel blocked that area as well. So the donkey just sat down. And every time that the donkey moved, Bilam just hit it, like, why are you not going? And now, there was a miracle that happened. This donkey turned around to Bilam and started conversing with him in language that Bilam understood. Be like, Bilam, what's up, man? Like, what you doing? And Bilam just like, for whatever reason, Bilam be like, I don't know why it doesn't say that, like, you can talk. Like, that doesn't mention, he just continued talking to me, like, he's like, the donkey goes over to Bilam and be like, did I ever like, stride you wrong? Like, well, I was a faithful donkey to you. And we're not going to go into all what that means, but, whoever knows what we're talking about knows what we're talking about. But the donkey was started talking to Bilam. Says, you've ridden me all your life. Have ever taken you on the side? Like, have I ever did something wrong to you? And Bilam was forced to be like, no. And now, like, if you stop there for a second, be like, what's going on over here? Like, the Bilam's donkey, the fact that this Bilam's donkey was able to speak, that was already, like, in creation, by the sixth day of creation. Like, God already created the mouth of the donkey. Look at Pirkei Avos. God already created the mouth of the donkey that's going to be able to speak already since the beginning of creation. Why is that so important that it's in the beginning of creation? And the lesson is, and this is one of the things Rabbi Zechariah Wallerstein brings down, the lesson is, the basic lesson of the concept of Hakaras HaTov. Like, Bilam, how are you so ungrateful to your donkey? This is your donkey who you rid on your whole life. This is where you spent so much time with this donkey. Where is your gratitude? Not only that, God granted you the gift of prophecy. Do we know what that? You know how hard, if a Jew wants to have a level of prophecy, when prophecy existed, you have to work on such a high level. We spoke about it. We spoke about prophecy in previous series. You know how hard it is to become a prophet? How much work you have to do? Bilam just got it as a gift. Like, he didn't earn it. He got a gift of prophecy. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this gift, and he's talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, can I go curse the Jews? No, I want to go. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, fine, you go. Where is your gratitude to God? God gave you this gift. God said, no, don't curse the Jews. Don't go. Like, the end of conversation. He gave you the greatest gift, conversing with the Almighty. Like, what's greater than that? So Bilam had ungratefulness to God himself. But not only that, he also had ungratefulness to his donkey. His donkey also, and not only that, he never learned his lesson. When he was stuck in the road, and he couldn't go to either side. He was talking to his donkey. All of a sudden, Bilam's eyes opened up, so to speak, and Bilam saw the angel. And Bilam sees the angel over here, And he says, oh, I have sinned, Bilam says. I did not know that you were standing opposite me. Bilam never mentioned anything about his behavior, about hitting his donkey. He was ungrateful to the end in all areas, because Bilam was an ungrateful person. Bilam was someone that cannot see the gratitude, cannot see the blessing, the benefit that he had. Now, we don't want to be on a level of a Bilam. We don't want to be like that. How much blessings do we have in our life, and how many times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens our eyes and be like, look at this blessing. Look at the bracha that you have in your life. We stop for a second and we think about it. We should fill up with joy. So we have to be so careful not to be an ingrate. We have to open our eyes. There's always room for improvement. Every single one of us over here. Oh, what a huge! You want to come into Elul? You want to come into Rosh Hashanah? Something big? Start saying thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Start saying, God, I owe you so much. And we come to El, we come to Rosh Hashanah, and again, rightfully so, we have a whole list of things. Like, we want this year to be better than last year. And rightfully so, right? We're speaking to the King of Kings, and everything's going to get judged, and everything's going to what's going to happen the following year, it's going to be coming up really, really soon. So we want to have a good year. But how many of us stop for a second and be like, you know what, God? Thank you for the previous year. I'm alive. I'm still here. Not a lot of people are here. There's so many things that we could be thankful for. And even, people that are live, I wouldn't say to do the live, I should really finish my sentences. People that are listening to this share live right now, don't do this. But if you're listening to this on a recording, pause this share right now. And, just say, God, thank you for, letting me live till now. There's so many things that I could be thankful for. Then unpause and then continue listening to the share. Okay, but anyways, so that was step number 2. So now, that was step number 1. We're still on step number 1. Oh my gosh. According to the time, I'm supposed to be up to step number 3 already. Okay, step number 2. Let's try to speed this up a little bit, because I want to get all these 3 things in one class. Step number 2. Area number 2, area of where someone is ungrateful, is that people don't want to owe someone something. If I acknowledge that you have given me something, then it's a problem, because then now I owe you, and I don't want to owe you. People don't want to owe anybody else. The origin where I feel this stems from, maybe I should say one of the origins, because we could technically break it up into 2, but the origin that I want to focus on, and I feel it's a big origin, it stems from arrogance, pride. You did something for me, but now if I acknowledge that, then I owe you. And people don't like owing you, because you know who I am. I don't need to owe you. I'm self-sufficient. I am on a higher level than you, and it's sort of like a lowering of a standard. So the Igeres Ramban goes and brings down the opposite, obviously, of arrogance is humility. Again, huge thing to focus on before Elul, before Rosh Hashanah. Also, if you're listening to this afterwards, huge thing to focus on anytime. Humility is the greatest of all, of the positive, character traits. The Igeres Ramban goes and brings down that someone who is humble has the merit that the Shekhinah rests upon him. That doesn't say that about all the character traits. When you're humble, when you're on the lower level, you don't have that arrogance, you can recognize and appreciate the good that others do for you. If you're such on a high level, you can't even see the good. You have to lower yourself in order to be able to see the good and to begin appreciating the good. Now, I want to take a little bit of a sidetrack. An idea that I spoke about many times before on, this idea that obviously this is very, very dear to me, and that's why I bring it up all the time. And that's the idea where people don't believe in God, don't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the atheism. Atheism, one of its origins stems from arrogance. The idea is, and we spoke about this before, is how can you say that something doesn't exist unless you know everything that exists? I want to give you an example I didn't give before. So imagine you have a storage unit auction. So basically there is these storage units that people store things in there. And now let's say if someone stopped paying and they're not reachable anymore, there's a lot of fees that counter up. So what happens is the storage unit companies, they go and they auction off, they open up the storage unit, you're able to look inside, I don't know if you're able to go inside, I don't know all the details of it, you're able to see it from outside, and you're able to look and you're able to say, okay, how much I want to bid, and you get all the garbage, all the stuff inside that's you could bid to take all that. And this is how they recoup some of their loss in their rental fees. So imagine this scenario. You go and you have a family, a friend, an acquaintance that has this facility. And he says, listen, there is a big talk about this storage unit. The guy is gone. No one's saying, they're gonna be auctioning it off. And he starts giving you the advice, a little bit before the auction. And again, legal or not, it's a fictitious example. So it's legal in my fictitious world. So you go into this, well, you can't go into it. You see this storage unit and you look into it and you see a bunch of boxes neatly piled up, beautifully, neatly, like very, very, like everything was very, very meticulous. And you're like, what's so special about this unit? And the owner says like, the owner of this unit was like a crazy scientist. He was a mad scientist. What happened is that this scientist, he created a mouse. Now this mouse, it's a genetically mutated mouse. If you get disgusted by the word mouse, then he created this genetically mutated, beautiful looking little puppy. I don't know, whatever it is that doesn't matter. Genetically mutated little tiny animal. And now it wasn't just genetically mutated. There was like computer parts with the natural parts. It was all created from there was no mother, there's no father. It was a complete, the whole entire scientific world was going crazy over it. He created it, he showed it, he displayed it, and then what happened was he disappeared. This mouse puppy disappeared, right? Depending on what you want, so you could choose which part of the story you want to listen to, mouse or puppy. He disappeared. And no one heard from this guy. No one saw from this mouse puppy again. It was gone. It was off the radar. People are looking for it. And later they found out that this was his storage unit. This is his storage unit. It says this is why this is such a big deal. Now this guy, he didn't write any notes. He was like a genius. Everything was in his head. The only way, if they're able to find this mouse puppy genius, robotic thingy, Majingi, which was what's legal scientific name. If you're able to find that, then the scientist could reverse engineer it and try to figure out what he did, and then start to figure out all the breakthrough technology that he was able to put in place. So needless to say, there's a lot of money, Rod. Once word gets out that this mad scientist created this genetically mutated, mouse puppy, dealio in here, forget it. It's going to go off the rocker. But we don't know what's inside. We can't go inside, unless the person buys it, and that's the person that's able to go inside. So this guy, the owner, is telling you, as a friend, be like, I can't let you inside, but I can open it up. I could show you that there's cameras. We have access to the cameras. You could study it, and you could see if you want to bid into it. Now you spend there days before the auction, and you're looking at the cameras, and you're looking for some sign. Where's the mouse puppy? Where is this computer animal? Is it there? You're trying to look for movement, food, fees. You're trying to see everything, but you don't see anything. Now the day comes for the auction. Can you say that there's no mouse puppy that lives in there? You don't really know. You didn't see anything, but you don't really know whether it's there or not. Maybe it's in one of the boxes, maybe it's on the table, maybe it doesn't move, maybe it doesn't have to eat so often. There's so many variables that you just don't know that it still could be there. You didn't see anything, but it's still very likely that it's there. When can you go and you say there's no mouse puppy in this storage unit? When you purchase the unit and you go inside and you start searching every crevice, every corner, every nook, and then you come out, every box, everything is clean, there's nothing there, only then you can say it's not in the storage unit. And even then you're going to start questioning yourself. Maybe it's in its walls, maybe it's on the ground, maybe it's on the roof, maybe there's always more that you could start questioning yourself. So in order for you to come to a correct conclusion of whether or not this mouse puppy exists in this area, you have to search and research everything. with that simple knowledge, with that simple piece of information that I just provided with you, the simple story about this mouse puppy, if someone comes and says that there is no God, did they search every corner, every crevice? And even if they did they look under it? Like maybe it's something, they didn't even know how to begin to looking for it. And the answer is, of course they didn't. So how could someone go and say that they're an atheist? How could someone go and say that there's no God when you didn't search every nook and every cranny, like there's so much, the world is huge, the universe is tremendous. How could you say that there is no God? And the answer is one of the reasons, it stems from arrogance, pride, pretentious behavior. The underlying reason, of one of the many, is that if there is a God, then I need to listen to this God. And if I need to listen to this God, then I have to thank this God for what he has given me. And I don't want to feel in debt. I want to live my life the way that I want to live my life. So atheism goes and pushes God out of the picture. There's no consequences. I could do what I want to do. I usually test this theory when I speak to atheists. I don't tell them this whole background story unless they listen to this class and they're beginning to hear a little bit of my background. Over the classes, I've put in a little bit of my thought process behind what I do. But one of the things that I ask them is, has a miracle ever happened to you? Now, everybody has a miracle happen on some level. Now, it's impossible, statistically speaking, that a miracle never happened to you. Because some anomaly, if something happened out of the ordinary, that's already something that could be identified as miraculous. But I don't explain that to them because then they could identify it as a statistical anomaly. They could identify it just like statistical, it just will happen at some point in time. But that's statistically speaking. But when I use the word miracle, I said, has a miracle ever happened to you? Many times, I've gotten, one or two atheists that said that a miracle does happen, and then, we go through a roundabout circle until they realize that they're agnostic. At least we moved into a different level. But when I speak to an atheist, I say, no miracle has ever happened to me. Like, why would someone say that? Like, what would be the underlying reason? Like, obviously something miraculous. You're in this world for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, 15 years. I don't know how you can be an atheist at 15 years. You don't even have brains, fully functioning. But whatever it is, you have some sort of, history on this earth for more than a period of time that you're able to converse with me. So you have to be older than 5, 6, 7, 8. In the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years, there was no miraculous thing that happened to you. You didn't almost get into an accident. You didn't almost go, you were in the right place, right? There's so many things that I could bring up as an example that was like, wait a minute, that was really out of the, how did that even begin to happen? There's so many things that had to fall into place in order for me to be where I was and get what I was and have what I was. So how come a person who doesn't believe in God cannot come to understanding that a miracle happened? Again, not everybody, but a big majority. And the answer is because a miracle I have to associate it with some higher power. I have to associate it with something. And if I have to, then I owe gratitude. Then I have to thank that person. No. I don't want to thank. I can't tell you how many atheists that I spoke to that were just, they were not atheists because they were angry at God. So it's whatever, but it's a different story in itself. But they were angry at God. That means you believe in God, you were just angry at it, but their focus was just on the negative. So once you start realizing that there is a miracle, that means I have to start being thankful. If I have to start being thankful, then I owe. And if I owe, then I have to do, and I don't want to do. I like the way that I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to do what somebody else wants to do. I don't want to do what some being wants to do. I don't want to do what the Torah wants. I want to do what I want to do. So we go, and it comes from a source of arrogance and pride. You don't tell me what to do. I want to live my life. And I could get in trouble, especially if I go down this path, which I'm thinking of, but I'm probably not. Maybe, I don't know, because of the late. If not, I probably would have gone down this path. But when you go to certain political correctness and pronouns and different things that people, delve into, that's pure arrogance. That's pure arrogance. The idea of identifying pronouns, you don't speak to somebody in a pronoun. You speak to them about someone's pronoun. If you don't know what I'm talking about, good. Don't just blank out for the next 5 minutes or 2 minutes. I don't know how long I'm going to go on this tangent. This is whatever, blah. Anyways, when you speak about someone's you don't speak about them in front of them. You're speaking about someone's pronoun behind their back, about somebody else. You say he or she, or now unfortunately say they, them, whatever it is. How do you tell somebody? It's when you speak about me behind my back, I want you to go and speak to me in this pronoun. They're excuse you, like, who are you? Like, Lord and Majesty is now my pronoun. Like this is how I have to identify you because this is how you decide to identify. Like, I'm not speaking to you as they, them. You don't speak to somebody, when you're speaking to somebody, you don't say he, you don't say she, you say you or your name. You know. So you go behind their back, now you're telling me, that's pure arrogance. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I have to now speak about the way that you want behind your back, like you're telling me how to think. Like, like relax, take a step back over here. Again, I could go on a tangent. I could really go on a tangent, but I'm going to stop myself. But the idea is, there's a lot of arrogance and there's a lot of pride when we go and we push God out of the picture. And we push miracles out of the picture. And we push when someone does something beneficial for us, we push it out. Why? Because it's like, I don't want to owe you. I don't want to give you the gratitude, because if I give you gratitude, that means I owe you. And if I owe you, that means I have to give back something to you. I don't want that. So what happens is people refuse to say thank you. People refuse to show gratitude because I don't want to owe. And one of the origins, one of the sources is because of gratitude. Furthermore, an arrogant, prideful person, they have a very difficult time studying under a mentor, a rabbi, or things like that. And I've spoken to people who are like, I can't find a rabbi. How could you not? There are so many people. Like, a rabbi doesn't have to be greater than you in all areas. Like, there's so many people that specialize in one area. Like, how do you not find a rabbi? How do you not find a mentor? There's so many people that know a lot more. They focus on one thing. But what happens is, if someone's an arrogant person, be like, if I have to study about under someone else, that means that he knows more than me. I know a lot. Like, we're gonna go on to this person. Come on, I could answer it up in so many different, ways. The arrogance, the pride prevents a person from studying under, like a mentor, a rabbi. Reb Dessler goes and explains this, that, when you have a little child and it learns its first letters, and now they learn the ABC, the Aleph base, so they think they know everything. Like, no, I know all the letters, I know everything. Like, do you know how to read? Like, no, but the second that the child is able to put the first few words together, they think they know everything. Like, I know how to read, but you only know how to read 3-letter words. They're like, no, I could, I could read everything. It takes me a long time, but I can read everything. Like, a child at every stage thinks that they know everything. And by the way, this doesn't last as a child. An arrogant person thinks like this throughout his entire life. Any subject that an arrogant person knows a little bit, thinks he knows everything. Thinks they know everything that there is to know about it. There's, I'll tell you an example. I was once giving a class. And before I was giving the class, I was talking to somebody. I was trying to convince him to go to yeshiva. He wasn't working. He was, he had the time to do it. I said, why waste time? Go to yeshiva. And he says, no, I already went to yeshiva. I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, it was a class I was giving to Baal Tshuvas, the people that were not, no association to Judaism. So I was impressed to see there's one guy who actually, came to, and went to yeshiva. I'm like, oh, so how long were you in yeshiva for? He said 1 year. I'm like, 1 year? 1 year coming from public school, remember that? What do you learn in 1 year? You're barely, scratch the surface. 1 year, he's like, and I was trying to explain to him, 1 year, you need a lot more. It's like, no. He came back to me, he's like, I know all the stuff. I know everything. And I'm like, you definitely don't know everything. There's no way you can know everything. He's like, okay, but I know a lot. A year. A year is a long time. I spent, a year studying shit. I know a lot. Listen to this. During this year, I'm giving the class, and during the class he stopped me, and there was food on the table, and he's like, Rabbi, what blessing do you make on a grape? And I was like, people who know me, my personality, I sometimes say it straight up, maybe I should be more nicer. I try to be nice. It's something that I go and I'm like, wait a minute. You went to yeshiva for a year. I said this nicer than I'm telling you right now. I told him what the blessing is, but then I went there and I'm like, okay, you went to yeshiva for a year. We had this discussion, you should go, for yeshiva more, learn a little bit more, and you feel like you know a lot. But you're asking me what blessing is on a grape that a second grader knows what it is, and you don't. So I'm like, doesn't that maybe something is missing and gaps of knowledge that you have over here? And I was trying to convince him, and he was like, he laughed it off. He's like, oh yeah, the blessing I make, he even like pushed it off. Like even when it was very, by the way, he's a great guy. Like don't get me wrong, he's a great guy. I love him dearly. I haven't spoken to him in years actually, but really, really nice guy. And I hope he's gonna be this nice guy also in heaven's eyes. And he couldn't even be like, even though it was like right in his face that he was lacking knowledge, he couldn't put the two and two together. Like, wait, so maybe I do need to go to yeshiva to learn a little bit more. Like, it didn't like click that he was missing the information. Like, there are some times that we think that we know everything. And I can't tell you how, like somebody goes, and I remember like, back when I was living in Brooklyn, and I used to give quite a few classes a week. And, so I had different classes, and sometimes people, like my guys, they went and they, my boys, they went and they messaged me, oh, what's the topic for tonight? And I say the topic and be like, oh, I know that topic already. And, I begin to be like, you know the topic already. Like, when I speak about a particular topic, so I do a lot of research on the topic, as I'm sure, some of you may have picked up on, and I spend a tremendous amount, like the topic of Hakaras Tov, everybody knows. Like it's not I'm not telling you something that you don't know, but there's a lot of information here that probably most of you did not put, two and two together. Like you could learn from everyone. Like before I give certain classes, I try to listen. If I have time, I love doing this if I have the ability to do it. So if I want to give a class on a certain topic, I try to listen to what other speakers speak about that topic. I don't always get it because it's very time consuming, and I unfortunately don't have the time that I would like to have to be able to do that. But I've used to do that, and even though you listen to one class on it from a particular speaker, and then you listen to another class, and sometimes you listen to 10 classes on the same topic, every speaker is focusing in it on a different angle, and you're able to learn something from every single speaker. You're able to learn something from every single presentation, meaning that if you go and you feel like you know something, then you feel like you're good. So many people, how do they go and listen to classes, especially if they go online? Thank you all for like coming into the actual, live classes. But people that don't come to the live classes, then they scroll online and they try to figure out which class they're going to listen to. But like this topic, okay, this sounds interesting to me. And again, granted, you're supposed to listen, learn things that you're interested in. But many people are like, oh wait, gratitude, anger. Like I know all these things already. Like I understand it, and you don't listen to it. Meanwhile, you're lacking on so much information. But what happens? What prevented you from listening to it? It was the fact that you thought that you knew everything. You already know everything, and if you know anything, then why do I have to bother with it? Going on this, idea of pride, I want to give you a few sources, and we really have to speed it up a little bit because I really want to get all the information in one class today. So give me a few more minutes, and we'll try to wrap it up. But before we go on to the final thing, the final area of ungratefulness, I want to speak a little bit about pride because I think this is very important coming to Elul. This is something that's huge to work on. The Gemara in Sota, page 4a goes and says that someone is a prideful person. It says if they served avodah zarah, as if they served idols. Because what happens is when someone goes and bows down to an idol, he proclaims that he doesn't believe in God because now he's believing in this idol. When someone has pride, when someone has arrogance, so like he gets angry, let's say for example, at someone, and he says, "How dare this guy do something to me?" What you're doing by saying that is you're showing that God doesn't run the world, meaning that God allowed this to happen. So when you get angry at somebody else, you're showing that God doesn't control the world, and you're getting angry at this person, and not really like this is the source. God sent this issue to you. Again, not that you shouldn't deal with this issue, you have to deal with it, but by getting angry, that's showing that you're upset about that person. You don't realize the source of it all, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So anger, which is associated with pride, is associated with avodah zarah because you don't believe in God. And of course, this all ties into atheism, what we're speaking about. The Rambam, Maimonides, goes and says that all traits is good to go in the middle. Focus on the middle, and that's the path he's supposed. Not too extreme. It's not always good to be too extreme. But there's one trait, and that is that you have to go to the extreme. And that is arrogance. That one is prohibited. You're not allowed to go in the middle path of arrogance. You have to go to the extreme, and that's humility, to be humble. It's not only that, it's not to be, humility is anivus, to be an anav. It's not only that, you have to be like a shafal ruach. You have to be someone, there's an extreme manifestation of humility. That's the level that you have to go to. That's the level. You want to go and be a grateful person, you have to go to be humble. If you're arrogant, you'll never be able to be grateful. You have to go to the humility. The Gemara Bava Basra, page 10b, and also the Gemara Avodah Zarah brings down that every arrogant person, every haughty person, they fall into Gehenna. There's like no getting out of it. Like there's so many bad things about pride. The Gemara in Erechin, page 68a, goes and says that tsaras, right, leprosy, this comes due to seven things. It's lashon hara, murder, false or vain oaths, gila arayas, theft, stinginess, and haughtiness, angerness, the pridefulness. You look at these categories of where it's also interesting. Stinginess is up there, right? But we're not going to speak about that now. But you look at the pridefulness, like it's on such a category. It's such a category that is on severe sins. Like the Gemara in Nedarim goes down. If a person gets arrogant, haughty, you know what God does? Midah k'neged midah, He lowers that person. It doesn't pay to be arrogant. It's not going to be like, okay, I'll pay for it. No. You know what's going to happen? If you raise yourself up, God pushes you down. You're not going to be able to raise yourself up. God's going to be like, no. Lower yourself down a little bit. You can't get this, coveted honor, things that you don't. God will push you down. The generation of the Mabul, the flood, they had like material wealth, and pleasure, like long life. They had so much. You know what they came to the conclusion? So why do we need God for? Why do we need a creator? For rain? We don't need rain. We have rivers, we have well springs, we have all the things that we need over here. So you know what? The very source that they said that they don't need God for, that's what they got punished. They said, we don't need the rain. We don't need God. We don't, because God brings the rain. We have the rain. We have the rivers. We have the well springs. We have things that are taken care of. Midah k'neged midah. You get arrogant about something, God will push you down on that exact thing. The Baal Term also brings down the same things what happened by Korach and the loss of possession. Korach was the wealthiest man. He became arrogant. Instead of appreciating the importance, he lost everything. So we see over here that pride and arrogance prevent you from having hakaras tov, prevent you from having gratitude. So the step one in this category is that if someone has arrogance and someone has pride, and again, we all have a sense of this. There's a little bit of something in each and every single one of us. And if you have that, then you don't like to owe to somebody else. But once you get out of that pride, once you get out of that arrogance, you can see how much you really need to be grateful to people. Once you go and you realize that there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then you could start saying, oh, I have to be thankful. If you don't believe in God, then how are you going to ever say thank you to God, to some being that you don't believe in? If you don't go and you don't realize how much someone else is doing for you, you'll never go and you'll never be grateful. And if you're so prideful and arrogant, you're not going to see the good. You're not going to be able to see it. Rabbi Eliezer Dessler. I know we're going through a lot of information, so I'm sorry. I wanted to put this all in one class. Really, this could have been split into 3 different classes, but I really wanted to put this all into one class. I feel like this is an important topic. It's time sensitive. It needs to be put out there. Rabbi Eliezer Dessler goes and brings down that every human being has 2 opposing forces. You have either the need to give, and then you have the need to take. Right? We're takers and givers. If we go and we give, that is emulating, following God's, who's the ultimate giver. And the other drive to take, this is more of a selfish, more based on our ego and, something that we want to just care only about ourselves. So these 2 drives to give and to take, this is the core of everything that we do. Now, when a person wants to live his life like Hashem's will, so he's going to go and she's going to only give, want to be a giver to the most extent. When somebody is living for themselves, for the momentary thrill, for the happiness, for the internal thing, they're only going to want to go and they want to take. So these 2 drives, to give and take, this exists in every person. But there's something that stands out. Either you're primarily a giver or you're primarily a taker. Now you'll have both, the give and take, but what are you focusing on more? What's more present in your character trait? When someone's a giver, explains Rabbi Eliezer Dessler, then if somebody does something good for someone else, like if someone does something, if let's say you're a giver and someone does good for you, you will feel the need to repay that person. You will see that kindness, that chesed that person has to do, and you will feel gratitude and a desire to repay the person. However, if you're someone who is selfish, if you're someone that's only a taker, then when someone gives you something, you don't feel any need to give anything in return. You don't feel like you could deny it was like coming to you. So if we want to become more of to be more appreciative, we have to be more of the giver. When we are more of the giver, then we can appreciate more when we receive. And this is the second part. In the second category, well, we'll finish up the last category. I know it's late. I apologize, guys. I try not to go over time, but bear with me, and we're gonna rush through it. Even though I want to dwell a little bit about on this, we're gonna finish it off with the giving like in the minutes, and then we'll be done. So the final area is entitlement. When someone's entitled, when someone feels entitled, I feel like I'm going too fast. I'm not going too fast. I'm not going too fast. I'm not going fast. Okay, good. This is me talking to myself because I don't understand anything what you guys are doing. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for that good, kind comment. Let's take a step back. Let's take a step back for a second, take a little bit of a breather. The second category. Let's understand the second category. The second category is when you don't want to owe. When you don't want to owe someone something, and that's why you're not grateful. So when you're not grateful to someone because you don't want to owe, it stems from, we spoke about two different areas. There's more, but we're focusing on two. The two is arrogance. So if you get out of the arrogance of pride, then you can start owing someone. And if you start owing someone, then you can start seeing the good that someone did. And if you start seeing the good someone did, then you can start being grateful that someone did. The second area that we spoke about is Rav Dessler. And that, what Rav Dessler says, is that if you want to be able to go and appreciate when someone gives you something, you have to become a giver. If you're a giver, then you can appreciate when someone else is a giver. And this really ties into the first thing, because once you realize what goes through into something, then you could appreciate when someone does something for you. Now let's go to the final area. The final area is entitlement, and this area of entitlement really is based off like, why do I have to say thank you to this person? I already deserve I deserve it. Like, and a common example is, let's say my parents, they need to give me my cell phone, they need to give me my car, they need to give me my vacation. This is words that I hate. Their job. This is their job. My spouse, they need to give me certain things. I said this example before, but I had people call me and they asked me to do certain things for them, and their response was, "This is your job." Sometimes I stop them, sometimes I don't, depending on what the area is. One thing that always pops to mind was this. It's still like, the conversation is so vivid in my mind. I for sure said this example before, where I had a teenager call me up and he wanted me to set him up, a boy with, he was 15, 16, 17, I don't remember what it was, maybe he was 18. He wanted to set him up with a girl. And I was like, I couldn't even comprehend. I'm like, I don't know you, I never spoke to this, I couldn't even begin to understand what was going on over there. And he kept on going and be like, no, but can you help me with this? Can you do this for me? And he said it in more of an abrupt way. And I was like, no, you want me to help you do a sin? I don't understand. I couldn't even comprehend. My initial thought was the correct one, but I was like, it didn't even make sense to me that I couldn't even begin to acknowledge it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to help you do that. Why would I help you do that? And his response was like, this is your job. I'm like, whose job? What are you talking about? Who's paying me? I'm not, what I do, I don't get paid for. This is not something that I do for financial gain. I'm not getting paid for this stuff. This is not something that you're definitely not, you're not my employer. I'm not working for you. I work for God. Okay, I shouldn't say I'm not getting paid for this, because Kadosh Baruch Hu does and pays, pays for it. And really, that's who I work for. I work for our God, and I don't work for anybody else. But I work for God, and obviously I have to listen to it. But when someone goes and says, this is your job, and I remember those words, rang in my ears. I was like, wow, this is, it was just comical to me. It wasn't even I wasn't even upset. I just found it funny. I found it very, very funny, because it was no, this is your job. And he was very sincere, and he may have been really real about it, and I explained to him why I can't and why I shouldn't do it, and go on and so forth. But his initial reaction was you need to do this for me because this is your job. And I'm like, there's what's the difference between job and helping somebody? When you do a job, you need to do it. So if I do you a job, you don't really owe me anything. I just did my job. So when he was coming to me and saying, this is your job, his initial intent was not even to I don't even owe you, I don't even have to thank you for anything, because this is what you need to do. As opposed to saying, can you help me with this, okay, so now you're asking me for kindness. So if I have to give kindness, I have to owe you. So when you look at someone who's doing something for you, if you look at them, this is your job, then you don't feel like you owe them anything. If you're looking at it as a kindness, as a help, as a chesed, then you owe someone something. And now, even though you could really go and you could argue on my statement and be like, well, everything is like you have to have a Yisrael, so really it is your job. Even so, there is still an obligation for the other person to be grateful and thankful for what it is. And when you focus on something that it's your obligation, then you start thinking, okay, if it's his obligation, then why do I have to be grateful for it? If you have a FedEx, a UPS delivery guy coming to you, again, they're getting paid for that. This is their job. But it's nice to go and say thank you and stop and say thank you. Usually I don't get to do this, but if I'm able to, and the mail lady or mailman go and they drop off the mail, I stop whatever I'm doing and I'm like, thank you so much. Like, thank you so much for coming. Like, granted, this is their job, but you say thank you. It doesn't matter whether it's a job or not. But the second that you think it's their job, you don't feel the need to say thank you. As opposed to, let's say somebody else did a favor and brought you a package from wherever it is, different part in America, different part of the world, then you're like, wow, thank you so much. You brought this package. I really appreciate it. So we tend to separate things where it's something that you had to do for something that you did for me. But in essence, if we look at the broad picture as you just did it for me, you didn't have to do anything, then we become more grateful and more appreciative. Now, this sense of entitlement that you have to do something for me, the highest level is really between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between us and God. Why, like how many people go and they complain to God, like, why isn't God giving me? Like I don't understand. Like, I've gotten calls where people are upset. Like, I don't understand why Hashem is not giving this to me. Like, let's say somebody, for example, is looking for money. So they tried business, it didn't work. They tried college, it didn't work out. They tried a job, they tried schools, they tried nothing else. I was like, you know what? Let me try religion. Like, let me try to be religious a little bit. So they start being, religious a little bit, and then they realize things are not going. Be like, wait a minute, why is not God giving this to me? I'm doing everything that He asked. And I tell them, God doesn't owe you anything. Everything that we have from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a gift. This is, by the way, this is key. What I'm about to say, for everybody that stayed on and listening, what I'm about to say is huge, key, probably the biggest, part of this, of this class. You know how we're supposed to look at life? We're not supposed to look at life entitled. That our parents need to give us things. Because if the parents need to give us it, we won't be grateful. We shouldn't feel entitled that our spouse has to do things for us. A spouse doesn't need to make us money. She doesn't need to make us dinner. She doesn't need to clean. He doesn't need to go and make us money. He doesn't go and need to buy me jewelry. Again, granted, you go to the ksuba, you go to the different things. Okay, fine. We're not going to speak about that. We're speaking about your character trait and your response to it. When we look at things that he or she has to do for me, we will never be grateful because this is their job. And if we say this is their job, then guess what? I don't have to thank you for your job. You're just doing what you need to do. This is not something that you're doing for. This is something that you need to do. We have to get that mentality out of our head. We have to get that thought process out of our head. We have to feel like life is a present. Our parents are presents. Our spouse are presents. Our children are presents. Everything in life is a gift. And when we look at everything in life as a gift, you can start seeing the beauty of life. And you can start appreciating the people that are involved in your life. When we feel like they owe us something, why would we say thank you? They owe it to us. God owes us to me. Like, keep Shabbos. I learn. I listen to classes. I do so much things. I'm listening to this little speech right now. Like, God owes me. God doesn't owe you anything. No one owes you everything in life is a gift. If we go through life looking that everything is a gift, our eyes will change. Our mindset will be completely different. First of all, do you realize how happy we would be? How happy we would see everything in our life? How appreciative we would be? We would see everything in life? There was a great rabbi, used to carry two papers on him. On one paper it says, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. For me the world was created. And the other paper was, Anochi afar ve'efer. I am but dust and ashes. So one paper is, for me the world was created, and the other paper is, I'm nothing, I'm a dust and ashes. The trick is to know when to pull out which paper. We have to realize and how to look at life. And if we begin looking at life at the right angles, we can see how much appreciation we have. And not only that, we can also see how much ungratefulness we had. So let's do a quick recap, and then we'll open up to some questions. I know we're a little bit overdue, and I apologize for that. So we said that there's 3 areas of where we fall into a category of ungratefulness. One is you don't realize the good. Number 2 is that you don't want to owe, and number 3 was entitlement. So when you don't realize the good, very simply, is that you have to look at the blessings that you have in your life. And if we stop for a second, we could see so many blessings, especially those blessings that we don't even realize until it's taken away. So if we could just picture how many blessings God could take away. Again, we don't want God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just keep on giving us more and more blessing, ad bli dai. That's all we ask, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just keep on blessing us with more. But we're going to go and appreciate everything that you've given us. The other area was we don't want to owe. And we broke that down into either arrogance. We have to get out of if we're arrogant, we can never be grateful. We have to take out of our arrogance, out of our pride. Huge, huge thing to work on before Elul. We're in Elul. Before Rosh Hashanah. And additionally, what Reb Dessler says, don't be a taker, be a giver. Once you're a giver, you can begin to appreciate what other people do. And the final thing is entitlement that we spoke about. Entitlement is something that we feel like we deserve it, we earned it. Don't look at life as you deserve anything. Look at life as everything is a gift. Because if everything is a gift, then you can begin to appreciate everything. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us and bless us, that not only that He should and will continue giving us the blessings that He's given us, but He should double down, ad bli dai, with blessings upon blessing, but we'll be able to see it. We'll be able to see all the blessings, and we'll be able to see life as a gift that it truly, truly is. Now we'll open up to the questions. Okay, let me look where we're going over here. Thank you for that thing regarding immunization, regarding the allergies. I'm doing the same thing on it already now with the injection, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm seeing an allergist. Okay, we had our question. It's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer. How did the children born in the Midbar think of food if they've never had man? Oh, well, no. I do know the answer to that. This is not the children that were born. These are people that had obviously the food beforehand. That's the ones that were complaining. Okay, I apologize. I know, guys, you guys spoke a lot about the freezing. I don't know. Maybe I need to switch internet providers. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How do you show, okay, here we go, question. How do you show gratitude, and to what extent to someone who themselves is an ungrateful person? So, this is a good point, because being grateful has nothing to do with the other person. Like, the other person could be a very ungrateful person, but if they did something for you, you have to be grateful for them. Doesn't matter how ungrateful they are, you have to show them the Hakar Satov. They're gonna respond to it like they might not understand it. Like, I've had interactions with that, and I've thanked them, be like, why are you thanking me? I'm like, because that's what you need to do when someone does you a favor. You thank them. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, I didn't want to give them mussar because they did me a favor, but like, they don't, like, people don't always realize what needs to be done, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't reciprocate and do what they themselves wouldn't have done for you. Okay. Yes, thank you, Shira, regarding listen to me faster. I haven't had any complaints about my speed, so I'm hoping that my speed is slowed down, but it could have been taken up a notch. I don't know. Okay, next question. When taking on a Kabbalah for Rosh Hashanah, is it better to work on something between me and Hashem, or me and my peers? That is a great question. Listen to this question. Is it better to work on Ben Adam L'Chavera, Ben Adam L'Makam? What is better to work on before coming to Hashem? So I don't know that I know an answer that I could tell you off, I definitely don't have a source of to say, like, I'm scared to say it, but, initially I would say Ben Adam L'Chavero, and I'll tell you why. When you go and you do tshuva, Ben Adam L'Makam, between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you do tshuva, and that's between you and God. If you did something wrong to your friend, it's not, you could do tshuva between you and God on, you could, Yom Kippur, you come and you do all the al-chetz, you did the tshuva, but if you didn't ask forgiveness for your friend, that's not complete tshuva. You have to go and ask that person for forgiveness. So, there is an aspect to that. But of course, there's so many caveats to that, because I don't know where a person's holding. If a person's not keeping Shabbos, and then they say, oh, maybe I should work on my anger, a little bit. Yes, you should work on your anger, but what comes first is Shabbos. You're not keeping kosher, and then you want to be more grateful. Obviously, gratitude is huge, but keep kosher. There are certain things that are more important. So it all depends really on the person. But assuming a person is all good, again, who's all good, where we are, but you really have to evaluate on where to focus on. But it's always good to diversify. Just like you go to any investment banker, you go to someone you want to invest something. It's good to diversify your things. So you work on a few different things. Of course, we have a focus that we want to work on, but you work on a few different things. You work on your tefillah, you work on your chesed, you work on your brachos, you work on your tznius, you work on between you and another person. You work on being happier. You work on Emunah. You work on hakaras hatov. There's so many things that you can work on. It's always good to diversify and spread the wealth. Let's call it. Okay. Next question. By the way, if I answer the question not to your liking, feel free to re-ask that. That's also okay. How can one differentiate if not wanting to be in debt to someone is based on ego or pain that they have caused you and others? So the question is, let's say someone did something good to you, but they also did something bad to you. So now you have you're thinking, they did something good to you, they did something bad to you. Now they did something good to you again. So now the question is, why? Maybe you don't want to feel so in debt to them, but maybe it's not because of your own ego. Maybe it's because of the pain that they caused you, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, you hurt me so much, and now you're doing something for me. How do we act with that? So we have to really separate a few things over here, sort of compartmentalize, different things. So there's a person who did something bad, they did something good, irrelevant. Let's say they did something bad, right? So there's a bad person. But this bad person did something good to you. So again, I'm not saying that Hitler did, gave you something, whatever, talking about the normal realm of things. If someone who did something bad did something to you, there is the person who may or may not be a bad person, or maybe did a bad thing, but now he did a good action to you. So there's a bad thing, and that's in a certain category. But now he did something good to you, you still have to have gratitude to that person. Now, you may not want to say thank you to that person. It's irrelevant if it's based off ego, if it's based off pain. That has to be overcome. Be like, you did something good for me. I appreciate it, and I thank you very much. Again, depending on the pain and depending of what happened. Like if like a husband really hurt a wife, and now the husband is trying to go and try to recoup. A wife will be like, I appreciate what I did, but we're not good yet. We're not there yet. There's obviously levels of where to go, but there has to be an appreciation for the good that happened, whether or not that person itself is a bad person or had a bad action that person has done. Thank you, Shira, regarding the kind words. A couple more hours. I don't know about that. After a couple more hours of me, you go out of your mind. Okay. How do we deal with Hashem taking away our blessings? Or how do we deal with the fear of God taking away blessing? Two very good questions, but very different questions. So one is actual and one is a fear. And I'll tell you why it's different, because there's a lot to be spoke, especially about the fear, the second part of that question. So how do we deal with Hashem taking away our blessing? We have to, that's all based on Emunah, by the way. The foundation for that answer is Emunah, that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu took something away, there is a reason for that, and we have to come to the terms. Again, there's so many different caveats, like, okay, maybe we have to do tshuva, maybe we have to, fix something, maybe we have to focus on this, and the blessing will come back. But putting all those on the side and just dealing with the issue is that if God took it away, so there's a reason for it. And okay, God, I may not understand everything that you're doing, but I know that you're controlling everything. With Emunah B'tachon, I realize that this is for the best at this point in time. Not saying that I'm not going to try to get it back and maybe try to go and, do tshuva or, take on certain things, spiritually speaking, obviously. But the second part of that question, how to deal with the fear of God taking away blessing, that's a huge topic in itself. Because that is something that's the negativity, and many people are dealing with this, that it's the negativity of where you have something good, but you don't appreciate it yet. And I don't know if this is where you're going, I may be taking it a step further, but where you you don't want to appreciate it yet because you have the fear of it going away. And once you acknowledge it, then you get attached to it emotionally. And once you attach to it emotionally, then you have the fear of it getting lost. And this is very, very common in relationships where some people have a hard time, though, commitments. And I don't know if I'm taking a few steps ahead of I don't know if you guys are following my thought process, but you have some people that have commitment issues, and that's based off fear of losing something or fear of being too vulnerable. And if they're vulnerable, then they're going to get hurt. And if they're going to get hurt, so then why do we start again? And they back it off and they self-sabotage and they do different things. So there's a lot to speak about dealing with fear of God taking away a blessing. But one of the main aspects of losing a blessing is to appreciate the blessing. So while there's a lot to speak about that, the basis of a short answer that I could give you is once you focus on the good, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that gives you more opportunity to keep that good, so to speak. If a person can wake up in the morning and say a genuine Maida'ani, but then hit one red light on traffic and begin complaining about how unfair their life is, how does gratitude affect your negative thoughts? Because it feels like the two feelings are on separate planes. Absolutely. So by the way, this is like in general, like you could be super, like you could listen to this class and you could focus on like super grateful things, right? And you could be in like a high, and then like you stub your toe. Don't ask me why I use this example all the time, but whatever. You stub your toe, you hit a red light, whatever it is, and like everything that you just worked on just like flushed down the drain like immediately. Like you go from like 100% positivity to like negative a bajillion of like negativity. How dare this guy? He made me miss my yellow. Now I have to wait another 30 seconds. And I have to see this hand count down 30 seconds. I'm like, I can't. I'm so late. And you could literally lose everything. So the trick is to focus on the positive a lot. And once you build yourself up a character trait that you're always focusing on the positive and you see a lot of positivity, then when it comes to negativity, slowly you can begin, including that positivity in the negativity. Meanwhile, so you lose that, you miss that red light, but sometimes you're able to stop and you're in the midst of like that anger. It's very hard, I understand that. But then sometimes you're able to like pause and take a step back and be like, you know what, all right, I'm in a car, I'm driving a vehicle that is capable of so much destruction and like so much awesomeness. You can begin to appreciate it. So the way to work on anything is to focus on the positive, and then slowly that creeps into the negative and things. But once you work on it, then you can, it's a process. It's a process, and it's not always going to work. And sometimes, negativity is going to creep in, but it's our avodah to go and to try to get it out.